Good morning, everyone. I think we're going to get started and hope others will join us as they finish their breakfast. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session today. My name is Monica Mehta, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Rule of Law Department and the International Lawyers Assisting Workers, or ILAW Network, at the Solidarity Center. For us, it is critically important to center worker voices and labor rights in any conversation about the expansion of technology and digital rights. We are all workers and all have a right to decent work, which means being paid a fair wage, guaranteeing a secure form of work, and having safe working conditions. As we will hear this morning, workers in the digital economy do not enjoy decent work. Whether they are content moderators, content creators, or drivers for e-hailing or food delivery platforms, these workers are often invisible, ignored, and almost always exploited. As we come together to think about regulation, implementation, and enforcement of laws and policies, we cannot continue to ignore and forget the workers who are at the center of these sectors. And with that, I would like us to turn to our panelists to talk more about what the working conditions are like, to help us better understand what it is from their perspective, and help us also think about possible solutions and policy that can help change and reframe the working conditions that they face. And I'm going to start with Chantel. Can you please briefly introduce yourself and tell us about your working conditions as a content creator? What does it mean to be a content creator? And in particular, can you speak about the challenges you face having an algorithm as your boss? And just as a point of privilege, I'm going to try to keep our panelists on a fairly strict time schedule so we can have some opportunity for Q&A after. So thank you. Chantel, please.
Good morning. My name is Chantel Petit. I've been a content creator for almost 7 years now and an influencer for 5 years. Over the years, the general assumption of what individuals like myself do is that we buy a camera, sit in front of it, talk, edit, and upload. When in reality, one content creator or influencer functions as a production house, marketing department, sales department, legal department, and so on and so forth. It's not all unicorns and roses, and it's an actual career, and it should not be looked at as a pastime. When I started creating content in 2017, it was a new thing in my country, Kenya. There were very few content creators, and not many people understood the concept. At that time, I knew my peers abroad were successfully using their platforms to voice their opinions on various things, as well as sustain their lives and earn a proper living. I didn't graduate from university, so finding a job was hard. Since I had experience in social media marketing, I decided to venture into content creation because it was something I thoroughly enjoyed and knew I could continue with the years to come. I essentially created a job for myself, and in my opinion, content creation is an expensive investment. The only difference is that you may not see returns immediately. Sometimes it might take years before you do, which in the real world is not sustainable and very risky in terms of survival. Content creation back then, when the algorithms were our friend, was actually quite easy in terms of audience growth. But for some reason during the pandemic, things started becoming hard. The main thing I noticed was the algorithm started changing, and not in our favor, but more in the favor of platform profits, which became a very scary term for most creators. I want to outline some of the challenges and complications my colleagues and I have faced over the years. The first one being mental health issues. There's several instances where a creator's mental health can be affected, and I'm sure most of us can relate when I speak about cyberbullying. I myself have been cyberbullied various times, and I remember the first 2 times were incredibly overwhelming. Imagine waking up on a random day and your phone is beeping nonstop with mean notifications, about 5 to 10 every 10 seconds. Most people would say to me, just delete the comments and block the mean accounts, but it's not as simple as that, because it's not like I was going to do that with my eyes closed. I have to read the comments first before protecting myself by blocking. I remember what it felt like, seeing what people were saying, and I literally could feel my blood boiling and the tears wouldn't stop falling. When it comes to the algorithm and how it bosses us around, one thing I have noticed is the fatigue that comes with it. Earlier, I mentioned that reach is a very scary term to most of us creators. Algorithms are set up these days to make a creator's life hard. We now have to work 5 times harder than we used to generate the same reach we used to get before the algorithms changed. Often hearing, just upload 5 posts a day, be consistent, respond to all your comments, respond to all your DMs, and you'll gain the reach you're looking for. All this is a lot for one creator, because remember, majority of us are not only present on one platform, but multiple platforms. I myself can be found on 3. So I'm expected to do all this times 3, and the content should be different for all 3 platforms. So essentially, I am supposed to upload 15 posts a day, be consistent on all 3 platforms, respond to all my comments, which sometimes could be in the thousands, and respond to all DMs on all 3 platforms.
We have to change the constitution so that we can accommodate the drivers. Traditionally, trade unions organize their members on one-on-one relationship, and given that, and these are, you organize people who are already employed and they're on salary, so the relationship is known. Relationship from individual member to the union is known. Relationship of that particular employee and the employer is known. So for these ones, we had to change the constitution. So we have decided to organize them on individual basis, just as normally, and we also decided to organize them as groups, and that is what we have done. And in the union, they have all the rights of membership. They have a right to vote for anything. They have a right to be voted for as members, as officials of the union. So, and that's what how we have moved on. Now, what was the first agreement we did for these drivers is given that they don't have social protection, we approached NSSF, National Security Fund. And National Security Fund was good enough. We came up with a product to give them, and the product was called Haba Haba. And Haba Haba, what Haba Haba meant is that these drivers will contribute some little amount daily, or weekly, or monthly, to take care of their pension when they get old. And again, the same driver will contribute some money or some amount daily to take care of their health, the National Hospital Insurance Fund. So it was generally, because we are East Africa, it was generally about 20 shillings for NSSF and the 20 shillings for NHIF. You not believe it that, some of these workers leave the house and maybe they have a sick child and they do not even have 10 shillings to buy painkiller, Panadol, So this NHIF was going to play a big role in changing their lives. So Safaricom provided the platform. So they are paying this, and they log into a system, SSD system, where this money will be deducted as he has instructed the app provider, either daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So for NSSF pensions, they will assess their benefits when they contribute for a period of 5 years. But for National Hospital Insurance Fund, they are able to assess the benefits after contributing for 60 days. So they will benefit together with their families. So that is the first agreement we made with the National Security Fund as to help the drivers. The product Haba Haba. We went further and engaged MPs who were friendly to us, Labour, and specifically Honorable Sakaja Mutula Kilonzo, and we pushed them to help us in putting in place regulations, just to help us govern the situation. So we pushed the regulation through Parliament, the Senate, and lucky enough they were published. So one major thing that the regulations helped us to do is to put in place that the app providers should be recognized as, will be taken as employers. So that was a big win for us, and again they put a cap on the commissions that were being paid to the drivers. So the regulations at least have helped us navigate a bit of the situation the drivers are facing. As we are talking now, we have placed a petition on the Cabinet Secretary Minister of Labour. We did that search and narrowed it down to real things, real issues that are affecting the drivers, put them in a memo, and we have presented this to the Cabinet Secretary, and we want to engage with the government to make sure that we come out this, and the end product of this should give us, regulations to govern the, not regulations, actually the legislations, yeah. So we want laws. The first one was regulations, but now we want it regulated into laws, so that the laws, can, with the laws, they will give us something like, when you commit an offense, this is the penalty about it. Now, all this is being done because we need fair roads, and if we have fair roads, you'll be safe. If the drivers are safe on the road, everybody else will be safe. Your family will be safe. Yourself will be safe. You'll go home feeling that you are safe. You'll get your people home safely. Because if you go to many hospitals today, you will get those hospitals have reserved a ward where, people who were involved in accidents, especially riders, special wards in hospitals. So we want to make our roads safe. And if our roads are safe, we will have decent jobs in the sector. And this is where we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General Secretary Dan. Again, I'm hearing so many similarities between workers in e-hailing and content creator workers in the lack of social protection, lack of health insurance, lack of safety, right? And the insecurity of not knowing how much you're going to be paid, when you're going to be paid, and not being recognized as workers under law, and how that's been really affecting these different workers. Nerima, I was hoping you could briefly introduce yourself and then also talk to us about what you have heard and learned about the work and harms faced by content moderators, and what sort of policy and legislative changes would help to prevent and mitigate these harms, as we heard from General Secretary Dan a minute ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. So my name is Nerima, and I lead a youth organization called Siasa Place. Siasa means politics, and we are a youth organization. And we call ourselves that because we believe everything is political, and young people need to be included meaningfully and participate meaningfully in terms of political and governance processes. So based off of that background, we've been quite involved with working with content moderators because of the case that's currently happening in Kenya. And majority of them are young. And so a lot of platform workers are young people. And we're seeing, especially in our region, our governments are basically encouraging young people to enter the digital task force. But there are a lot of challenges within that. So just to break it down, a content moderator is basically the online police. They're the ones who make sure that you do not see a lot of the very graphic, toxic content that you see. So as I say that, I know many of us have probably seen something gruesome online. Maybe even an accident or someone actually committing suicide. some of us have seen graphic content. Content moderators watch this content sometimes 8-9 hours a day, every day. This is their job. And their job is to try and make sure they are given a few seconds to make a choice as to, is this toxic or not? Can this go up or not? And their job is to pick in seconds that it's toxic so that it doesn't go up. And we have to understand that in Kenya we had, hundreds of them working in Kenya, but we need to understand how they were lured into these positions, to go into now the policy answer and the legislation answer. The way it was advertised, first of all, they target young people from poor communities. And they advertise it like brighter future, best opportunity, and freedom to move wherever. Sign up. So here you are, you sign up, you think you've gotten a job opportunity of a lifetime, and then you're not even told what your job is. Many came into Kenya thinking it's a customer service role. My job is to pick the call for a company and basically say this product is amazing. So by the time you're even coming into the country, you realize, oh my gosh, I actually work for a big tech company. And then let's take it to the next layer, where even to have a break where you work in this new place, when you sign up to work, you're actually signing an NDA. You can't share with your family members where you work or what you do. And so there are so many things within contracts that you're being treated as though you don't work for this particular company. And a lot of these companies, they are not here in Kenya or based in Kenya. They are outsourced. So it's another company taking care of these people, and then the major company somewhere else. So I've talked about you moving to a new country, and you don't really have the status of a citizen or a legal citizen. So they don't really give you health. They don't pretty much care. And so here you are going through this content, and then you're underpaid. Compared to a person who does the same amount of work somewhere in Europe or the US, same skill, you get paid almost 6-7 times more than you do. So you're underpaid. We've talked about mental health here. You cannot imagine the PTSD that they have. And they do not have access to any wellness or mental health or therapy, nothing. You're basically told to figure it out, be happy you have the opportunity. Besides, you're from Africa, which is very poor, at least you have a salary. So when we look at all those things that we can clearly see that are wrong, and then it's mixed up in this confusion on where do I belong, we actually treat them as if they're invisible. Many people don't know that content moderators exist. And it's even scarier that when we talk about our region, the number of languages we speak so many languages, but you will find one person. I think I met someone, a content moderator, translating for the whole of Namibia. How is that possible? And so you'll see that they will focus on the main languages, then overwhelm the individual to make sure that they read content from across the board. Here they are flagging situations and they understand the context of their community. But the companies, they see it very minor. They're like, in your community, a word as stupid could actually lead to conflict. But that word is not so bad in a Western point of view. So I think when we think, or when we talk about content moderations and content moderators, they need to be recognized as workers. That's even Chantal explaining her experience. She works. We have this notion that these jobs online are not work, especially when you can't see a service. It's content that they're producing or content that you can't see on the back end. And then secondly, it would be the inclusion of wellness, even in their agreements, the inclusion of health within their agreements. And I don't want to talk too much about the intricacies of the court case, because there are many other legalities that are involved within the case, since it's still, in court at the moment. So there's the aspect of having access to a therapist, for instance. In the US, content moderators do. They have access to that sort of support. but in Africa, no. And we also have to see there's a huge difference with the global north and the global south, where they send the most gruesome content to African content moderators. They send their worst. They send their worst. And then they don't give them any sort of safety net to be able to protect their minds. So we need to start thinking about how this is actually taking advantage of our young people, and it's almost a modern day sort of exploitation. That's how we need to start thinking about this. And the laws that exist in our countries need to be able to protect. Because, when we hear about unions and collective bargaining, it becomes a bit complicated. Because here you are, a South African, doing content moderation in Kenya. Your paperwork is not quite legit. You can't join a Kenyan union. You can't. And so sometimes it's like they've created these barriers to make sure that even them coming together is difficult. And so once they're recognized as workers, then we begin to, decipher all the other complexities that exist for them to have their own voice and to be able to push back, but also for governments to regulate in a way that protects our young population rather than transferring the kind of exploitation that we're seeing today, that we've witnessed in our continent in the past during times of colonization.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nerima. I'm seeing such clear trends, right? I would argue that the platform workers for e-hailing and writers are often young workers. We know content creators are often young workers. We are hearing from Nerima that content moderators are young workers. And, they're new to the workforce. They're being exploited. They're often migrants or come from identities that are often marginalized. And so they've already exploited them before they even get to the job. Then they get to the job, and that we heard the same thing from all three of our current speakers. They want to be recognized as workers. They want to be recognized to have the protections laws are supposed to give workers. And we are seeing over and over again in all of these digital economies, in these types of jobs, that they're not recognized as such. And purposefully to then not avail themselves of the protections, whether it's freedom of association to join a union, whether it's occupational health and safety, both physical safety, as we've heard about, and mental health safety, whether it's social protection to ensure that you have the ability to take care of your family and have health insurance. All of these things are incredibly important. And we as a community and those who are working on expanding technology opportunities need to really be thinking about what type of work are we really selling to the next generation of workers? Do we want our young workforce to have so many mental health problems that they can't hold down their next job, that they can't sort of have a family, that they are working so much that they might be in fights with their family or not able to spend time with their children, or are working 12, 14-hour shifts and getting so exhausted that they end up in fatal car accidents? So we really need to be thinking about this holistically. And I think we're hearing a lot of those themes come up in the speakers who've had a chance to speak so far. Alex, I wanted to turn to you if you could briefly introduce yourself and then talk to us about what you're seeing within the region with respect to work in the digital economy, in e-hailing, food delivery, domestic work, content moderators, content creators, and the sort of policy and legislative changes you think would substantially lead to concrete benefits and to mitigate some of the challenges and harms that we have been hearing from our presenters.
So thank you very much, Monica. And upfront, I should declare interest. The moderator and myself come from the same organization, the Solidarity Center. And so my name is Alex Ogutu. I'm part of the Solidarity Center team based in Nairobi. So the Nairobi office serves the East and the Horn of Africa region. So Solidarity Center, in brief, is one of the largest worker rights organizations. We are headquartered in the Washington, D.C. in the United States. We operate in over 60 countries across the world. Here in Africa, we have 3 regional offices, one based in Johannesburg, serving the Southern Africa region, the other based in Abuja, Nigeria, serving the Western Africa region, and the third based in Nairobi, serving the East and the Horn of Africa region. So I'm part of the team that is broadly serving the East and the Horn of Africa region. So having said that, I should begin by mentioning that the role of Solidarity Center is largely facilitative. We work with our partners, and our broader mandate course is to ensure that partners, to the best extent possible, they are able to service the interest of workers and ensure that they secure decent sort of working conditions for their respective workers. So specifically for the digital economy, we are as diverse in areas that we cover, but I'll focus on the digital economy. We have active projects that are ongoing in the East Africa side, in Kenya, as well as in West Africa, in Nigeria. So we are beginning to do similar work. We are at the exploratory phase. We are beginning probably next year to do similar work in South Africa as well. So to your question, Monica, yes, from the work that we have done, there's a lot to learn from. We have worked closely with the Transport Workers Union. We've supported them to do a number of work. In Nigeria, we are working with the Amalgamated Union of App-Based Transport Workers, but also we are beginning work with the Communication Workers Union, focusing on content moderators. So a lot is really visible. So what kind of work do we do? So first, we support in, one of the things that we do is we support in research. We acknowledge the centrality of information. If you are to undertake fact-driven advocacy, then information is the best tool and inevitable tool that you must have, just so you are able to present empirically grounded sort of data in the course of advocacy. So with Transport Workers Union in Kenya, we did this last year, and we do have a research output. It's a public document that makes some stunning revelations insofar as platform economy e-hailing service particularly is concerned. So we are talking of an economy that to Kenya generates roughly 3% of the GDP, if I remember correctly, and employs close to 100,000 workers. But if you look at the conditions of workers, it's really not commensurate to the amount of, the contribution, the financial contribution that they are making to the country. The working conditions are suboptimal, and most of the challenges, don't need to repeat, most of the challenges have been comprehensively and aptly captured by the General Secretary, Transport Workers Union, and some of them, my colleagues on the content moderation side, have indicated. So the other thing that we do with our partners is work around advocacy, policy and legislative advocacy, and this partly addresses the question that you've asked, Monica. So once we have the information, what next? Information can't just be allowed to lie idle. So we try to have it, trigger it, and have it respond to some of the challenges. So in Kenya, for instance, there's work around enforcement of the regulations that were gazetted last year, which regulations seeks to streamline work in the platform economy. The e-hailing matters to do with classification or misclassification of workers, if you may, questions around the commission and so on and so forth. But as General Secretary Dan indicated, implementation, enforcement faces a challenge, but also there is a desire to have some sort of strong legislation to address that. So even in Nigeria, there is a lot of work ongoing around policy and legislative advocacy. So that's part of the work. And there are a number of things that could be done here. One is just having strong legislation, because the challenge there is that the platform companies have a creative way, or rather a disruptive way. They move so fast in how they think, and so if workers are not able to keep pace, then we would be left in a situation where we lament. And so that's the thing that Solidarity Center is trying to intervene to do, just so to ensure that we keep pace with the platform companies by way of ensuring that we have right policies and legislation to ensure that there is minimal exploitation. So the other thing that we do as part of trying to better the workplace is support for litigation. So whereas the policy and legislative may be a bit more proactive, preventive, the litigation side may serve both. There is the reactive side, so you have challenges that have been faced, and so you try to seek litigation by way of judicial intervention to have matters redressed. And this is particularly specifically done by our ILO, International Lawyers Assisting Workers. They play an active role. They do it in Kenya, they are doing it in Nigeria, and we hope soon they will do it in South Africa too. So here what we seek to do is to seek the intervention of the judiciary to ensure that matters are addressed for the platform workers. So the fourth thing that we do, and this is very, very critical, is organizing. We support our partners to do organizing. So this we see as kind of magic wand, the bullet that will help confront the might of the capital. Once workers organize, their voices, believe you me, will be so amplified that not even the platform companies would afford to ignore. So we are working with our partners across the continent. In Kenya, Transport Workers Union, General Secretary Dan indicated what they are doing. They amended the constitution just so they could accommodate the preferred organizing model for the e-hailing drivers in Kenya. So something unique happened in Nigeria, and because of the challenges they had with the Transport Workers Union there, they opted to form a union that is dedicated to e-hailing drivers, the Amalgamated Union of App-Based. It is the first of a kind in Africa, and maybe I should dare say in the whole world. So that's something unique. They have organized, thus far they have around 500,000 members. So organizing is key. So we try as much as possible to ensure that we support them by way of staffing, capacity building, and so on and so forth. So as part of experience sharing, so there are things that are happening in Nigeria, in Kenya, in South Africa, and also beyond, because this project, much as I'm focusing on Africa, the project covers other regions as well. We are implementing a similar activities in Asia, but also in Latin America. So as part of ensuring that what the left hand does, the right hand knows, we have deliberate initiatives that are aimed at ensuring that people learn from each other. Peer learning is something that we have incorporated. So sometime in July this year, we had our comrades from Nigeria come to Kenya just to share the experiences that they have there. We believe that this way, people will not be siloed in the way they approach their work, and that each of them could learn from the other, because at the end of the day, our worker is a worker everywhere. And you do note that most of these app-based online companies, they are multinational corporations. Talk of Uber, talk of Bolt, talk of Meta, talk of all of them. Majority of them are multinational in nature. So if their might is to be confronted satisfactorily, then workers everywhere must rise above the geographical boundaries that are there. And one way that we do this is to have these peer learning sessions. So occasionally we do these peer learning sessions virtually as well. Aside from the physical one that we did between Nigeria and Kenya, we do a number of them virtually, bringing on board all the implementing partners across the world. So we believe with this kind of interventions, we are able to creatively foster that kind of spirit that will ensure that the psyche of the workers is constantly high. They are able to sustain their effort, in part because really capital is not giving up. In any case, they are becoming more and more creative. We see every time Kenya, talk of Kenya, every time Bolt, Uber, they pay courtesy calls on the government, and who knows what they discuss there. So if we are to ensure that we keep pace, they do not outpace us, we just have to be creative in how we address this. So yes, and also in conclusion, I should mention that beyond the direct support that we are giving to our partners, we are currently involved in the quest by the International Labour Organization to develop a convention that is dedicated to the decent work for the platform, digital workers. So initial discussions will be kicking off sometime in 2025 if the plan is stuck to. So as Solidarity Center, through our Rule of Law Department, ILO, we are having initial preparations on how we can have engagement with workers so that by the time the process kicks off, they should be adequately tooled to engage with the process meaningfully, creatively, and satisfactorily. So we do hope that the process will yield some satisfactory success. Lastly, I think there has to be a general acknowledgement, and ILO does acknowledge this, that social dialogue is all part and parcel, or is all part and process of what is needed to sustain global peace. So without addressing the needs of the workers, comrades, we just have to agree that we cannot have global peace. We may have LAL, but not global peace. So our effort is toward ensuring that we have global peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alex really transitions us well to our last speaker. Alex is talking a lot about the work Solidarity Center does, not just within one country, but really trying to build bridges among various countries within the region, but also globally through our work. And Innocent, I'm hoping you can briefly introduce yourself and talk from the perspective of a global union. What sorts of transnational organizing and policy work are you seeing union members advocating for in the digital economy throughout Africa, and then also sort of globally, as Alex alluded to, the issues we're seeing for workers is not just in Africa, but globally, since these companies are multinationals. So please.
Thank you very much, Monica. My name is Innocent Tsumbu. I'm the regional representative of Uni Global Union Africa. For your information, Uni Global Union is a global union federation representing 20 million workers worldwide in 150 countries through 900 trade unions at national level. We are covering 13 sectors. So the main reason as a global union federation we would like to involve tech workers in our program is that most of the companies who are employing tech workers worldwide, first of all, are multinationals, and some of them are outsourced companies. And then you can see that in terms of the decision-making process, the CEO or the HR officer you can see in Tanzania or Kenya is not the one who can take the correct decision. He should refer to another one based in London, in USA. And that is why, as a Global Union Federation, what we are trying to do to promote strong social dialogue through our affiliates from the ground is to empower our affiliates at the local level, to train them so that they can create a network at the regional level, and we call it alliances, trade union alliances. So through these trade union alliances, we will collect cross-cutting union demands from Kenya, from Tanzania, from South Africa, from Namibia, and then we can share best practices or experiences, and then through our organization we can now draft a global agreement and go to discuss with the CEO, which is based in London or USA. But the most important thing is for them, for those content moderators or tech workers, is to be recognized, as my predecessor said, as workers. And as my colleague Narina said, that most of them are migrant workers. And sometimes it can be difficult for them to join a union. But as a global union federation, we know that there is an ILO convention related to migrant workers. And we can use this one and use also the declaration of ILO on multinationals. So we will try to work, and that is what we are trying to do also, to improve working conditions from the stake, for the stake workers, so that we can try to make the decent work in Africa a reality. Because you can see yourself, based on the analysis made by my predecessor, the question can be, those jobs created by this big company, are they decent or precarious? And the response can be simple for you. Those jobs are precarious in Africa, and we need to fix those things. And to fix them, first of all, we need to make sure that the freedom of association and the right to bargain collectively is respected in Africa. Because the tech workers in Tanzania, in Kenya, is doing the same job like the one in Argentina or Colombia. Why not fixing the standard that can allow them to have fair wages, social protection, correct social protection, and also the occupational and on health and safety? Because if we don't work like that, it will be a kind of discrimination amongst those who are working in the sector, and we need to fix them. Because in Africa, we know that we have some problem with our government, of our politicians, because for them it is just to call those investors, say, okay, you can invest in my country. But for us, as my predecessor said, that most of these tech workers are young, and the future of our continent, the future of our labor market is between the hands of those tech workers. That's why, as Global Union Federation, we are open to work with civil society actors, NGOs, so that we can work together and, as I said, make the decent work a reality in our continent. And I hope that we can do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I have more questions for panelists, but I thought maybe we can take a round of questions from the audience before I come back to them for my questions or any final comments. So are there questions from the audience that we can take? Okay. I see one hand there and a second hand there and a third there. So maybe we start with you. Do we have a mic? There's a mic. Please introduce yourself and what country you're from before asking your question.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Kagoye Robina. I'm from Uganda. I work with Voices for Labor. My question is, it goes to my comrade from Uni Global. I'm just wondering, how effective are these global framework agreements? Because I see a situation in Uganda that irrespective of the trade unions in Uganda being affiliated to Uni Global, and I'm sure some global framework agreements have been signed by Uni Global, especially on multinationals like Total, Shell, and other multinational companies in different sectors. But then I note that the multinational companies in Uganda are the most abusers of labor standards. So how effective are these ones, are these agreements? Is it that the affiliates do not take them seriously, or we need other tools to support them?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is YZ. I come from Nigeria. I am excited by the work that the Transport Workers Union in Kenya is doing. But I think that you are taking only a small segment of the new forms of employment that is arising out of the digital ecosystem. By and large, most of them have invisible employers. And given that, I'm wondering whether in your reflection, you are seeing a decomposition of the role of trade unions itself, and then a corresponding recomposition as to what it should be doing now. One of the key role of trade unions is actually to provide a platform for collective bargaining. And you can only do collective bargaining if there is visible group of employers. And so for many, including content providers, the employers are actually invisible, okay? Some of them, sometimes there's even ambiguity whether the e-platform workers are actually contractors, self-employed, or they are employees, you know. And that leads me to Tembo's response. You have made allusion that the content creators, for instance, are not allowed to unionize or to join unions in the countries that they are not, they're migrants, you know. So what you have is that increasingly there is an attempt to divide unions and to divide workers. Now, does that not challenge us as trade unionists to recast the notion of national unions and rather to begin to organize transcontinental unions rather than unions that are based within national boundaries, you know, so that we can be able to deal with the issues of our employers? And that leads me to my last question, which is, are we not really seeing the resurgence of colonialism in a new form? Increasingly, you have firms shifting to third world countries through outsourcing because they are coming to get cheap labor. And so our employers are in the advanced countries. And isn't that really a new phase of colonialism? Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody in the hall. My name is Comrade Ayoade Ibrahim from Nigeria, a General Secretary of OTON. OTON is Amalgamated Union of App Transport Worker of Nigeria. My own is, I want to say something before my somebody talk at the back that we are working with invisible boss, but to me they are feasible. So it's not a matter of invisible, they are feasible. The chairman of Uber, no globally. The chairman of Facebook, no globally. The chairman of Bolt, no globally. The only difference here is interface technology to communicate to workers. So with that, there is a real way of doing collective bargaining, like in the any industry. If you work like 4 hours in Uber, 4 hours in Bolt, 4 hours in InDrive, it's very simple with capacity to come up with collective bargaining by hourly working. That's the difference between traditional way of working and the new way of technology interface, giving the instruction of work. So I just want to clear with that there's a feasible boss on this environment. It's only what we need is capacity. And may I say that the major issue that I just want to ask question with little contribution is the issue they mentioned concerned to the collaboration across the region. It's very important for us to collaborate because these are the global companies that they do. Some of them are not even feasible in Africa, even before you see them feasible, maybe the law of a particular country mandated them that they have to have their own office, like what happened with Twitter in Nigeria after cutting off of our space before they mandate them. Like Uber have physical office in Nigeria because of the law they bring for them to do so. So on this environment, I just want to say something. Maybe some of the big tech representative is here. This is not a war. It's an understanding between two parties. And the reason why I say this is not a war is this, because without those workers, there is no Facebook, there is no Uber, there is no that. So I want an illustration that an Uber or a Facebook boss will stand up one day and said, look, enough of slavery and what have you. Let us judge together and see how we be in the middle. That's number one. Number two, I want an illustration that the investor of those big tech come out that, look, I don't want to sponsor my money in a company that enslave people all over the world. Yes, black are the victim of all this employment all over the world, whether in Africa, or in the US, or UK. Because when you hear of immigrants do most of this work in UK, in US, in whatever. So we, as a black, we are the receiving hand, whether at home or at abroad. So it's very, very important for us to know that. So finally, not to take much time, I want to just use this opportunity again to applaud the Solidar Center that they should continue on the transition work that can go across the Africa, so that if my brother is suffer in Tanzania, I can hear from Nigeria. That's what they call solidarity backup. I can just block their income from Nigeria, block their income in Tanzania and Kenya, and they will feel it. Unlike only my Tanzania guys are, sovereign of this. So what I'm trying to say is that if you call for the strike across Africa, it will be more effective than for only a particular country to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we're going to have the panelists answer some of these questions, and then we'll try to take another round. There were some questions that were directed at specific panelists, and then there were some that were, I think, open to anybody. Maybe Innocent, we can start with you, and then we can make a round for those who want to answer.
So, thank you very much, Monica. To my colleague or comrade from Uganda, yes, you are right. At the time Bank has Global Union, we have signed more than 50 global agreements, including the one we are preparing now for MTN, which is based in Uganda. And you are right, sometimes our affiliates don't use those tools to better implement the respect of freedom of association and the right for collective bargaining. And that is why I say that we need the support from other colleagues, from other partners, so civil society, NGOs, so that you can push them to better understand the availability of those tools they can use at the national level. So to respond to my comrade from Nigeria who said that those workers are not visible. No, they are visible. We have signed a global agreement with Teleperformance, one who is employing call center. And I don't know, everybody knows here that call center, you can't see them. But we signed a global agreement with them. But the most important for those workers is to tell them that this is a tool signed for you, and you can use this tool for your own interest. And it is very important. Now, talking about migrant workers, yes, in all of our national labor laws, the migrant workers has the right to join a union. But the first condition is to have a regular working permit. I myself, a migrant worker, I'm not from Cote d'Ivoire. I'm from DR Congo, based in Cote d'Ivoire since 15 years. But I belong to a union there because I have a regular working permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Others who want to answer? Maybe General Secretary Dan?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the questions have been adequately addressed. But thank you for the compliment, brother. What I want to tell you is this tech companies generally are what we are referring to supply chains. And these supply chains need to be disrupted by unions. And that we need to disrupt them and make some order in the way they do things. So it is up to us unions to do that. And we don't have a prescribed method of doing it. Unions have to come out innovatively and come up with agreements which are, different from what we are used to doing traditionally. Because, this is a new world. This, I will not say it's neocolonialism, as you say. I will say it is a revolution. So it's a change in the way we are doing things. So are we supposed to change, or we are supposed to change the way it is us to move with the world and do things differently? From my sister in Uganda, global agreements as local unions are supposed to leverage on those global, agreements. They're supposed just to give them a leverage. And if some unions in some country, they do not know what to do, maybe this is where Solidarity is coming into and making, us come together and think globally to see how we can work together. But I think if there is any global agreement with the NTEC, local unions should use that as a leverage and make agreements that suit the situations. And I'm saying this because when we got regulations in Kenya, Uber went to court to challenge those agreements, to challenge those regulations. And with the support of Solidarity Center, with the legal team, the moment we filed our responses as interested party into that case, it was withdrawn because it was clear that there are relationships between Uber and the unions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Others who want to answer? Nerima, Chantal, Alex, anything else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the matters are not black and white, because unfortunately it's mostly gray. And we have content moderators that are currently in Kenya without even work permits. So you begin to question, how are they here? And even the contracts that they had were short term. And then even the renewal and the kind of visas that they have is questionable. So we also need to recognize that at the moment our parliament is debating how WorldCoin entered the country. They were working. They were collecting information. And they spent over $1 million, even $1 million in policies, in paperwork, in permits, and Parliament itself is wondering who authorized this. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of gray in our countries, and there's a lot of regulation required, but it also requires information, education, awareness to be able to sort out the main issues that we're seeing.
Chantal or Alex? Alex, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I think questions have been addressed satisfactorily. I just want to add my voice on the transnational organizing side, because as Solidarity Center, we think this is very, very critical. I think the reality of it, and this is a painful reality for workers, is that in the African context, there is this race to the bottom phenomenon, where if, say, you have Meta operating in Kenya with content moderators, because their content moderation is done in Nairobi, Kenya, they would always front the narrative of we are providing employment. Certainly they are taking advantage of the fact that on the continent there is high unemployment rate. So if you try to push for changes, be it policy or legislative, that would secure decent work, the first thing they do is they threaten. I think even with this litigation, the ongoing litigation, they threaten that if you can't accommodate our wishes, then we will simply quit and go to another country. So the cure to this is really transnational organizing, and I guess it isn't a definitively concluded thought process yet. It is just to invite the unions, we are here, just to think through how this can be undertaken effectively. I think the model, the sort of approach isn't something that we can, it's not something that we can note that we are there. No, we are not there yet, but it's just to invite us, just to think through how well we can make it effective. Otherwise, the circumventions that are being instituted by these multinational companies will continue harming us here. Thank you.
Thank you. Chantal, anything you would like to add?
I do agree that our employer is sort of invisible in that we never have direct contact with them. So I feel like the development of structure and definitions on the hierarchy of how we do our job would be a great thing in order to eliminate the invisibility of our employer.
Thank you. I think we can take maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Okay, I see a hand over here, and I see a hand over there. Let me see if we can get mics over there. So maybe we'll do 1, 2, and 3. So, yeah, this woman here, and there's a gentleman over there as well, and then Shane over here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ayobami from Nigeria. Part of the union representing Lagos State. I'm the vice chairman, female. Thank God for this platform, and I hope to see more of this soon. The main challenge we're having, coming from the women, no, general, let me be general now, is organizing. Yes, it's safe to say we now have a union, and the focus is on us now. Other African countries are, looking to hear what we can do out of this union, what is the opportunity, coming to us and all. But we have a big challenge in organizing. Why do I say this is, whenever we want to challenge this app company based on their policies that is not favoring us, drivers are not ready. I say this because we organize, I can't count how many times we've organized strikes, and we just, come back to, it's like it's even from top to bottom. We are fighting for everybody. Every drivers want to be liberated. They want a good working condition and all, but they are not ready to make that sacrifice. And this app company knows this. They try to use their own capacity to make sure that the strike does not hold, and it works. So drivers are not ready, and we are finding it difficult to get to be able to compel them to do things that we need them to do. How do we do this? I appreciate Solidarity Center for their work so far, but we need more. We need more tools to work. We need training and retraining. We need, you understand, we need a safe landing, that when we call drivers, come, let's do this, it's for our own good, they will come. But you will somebody will tell me, oh, I've not paid my children's school fee, my rent is due, I'll need to pay my partner. They know this app company, and they are using that to get our attention, and this is making all our efforts go down the drain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael from Uganda. I ran a software academy back in Uganda, and as we have this conversation, one of the things that has struck me is that whereas it is very easy for us to target, let's say, Uber, the guys who are working with Bolt, and these organized clusters, we have quite a number of individual citizens that are going onto these online platforms and are getting work and are they're doing work, professional work, but they probably don't even understand some of the things that we are talking about. And you probably won't even get them organized the way you want them to get organized. And the reflection I have is how do I prepare these young people that whose talent and work is professional and is required, but are not organized and are working their back office at home, and their pay is coming in from all sorts, and the numbers are growing from the inquiries that we keep on getting. The numbers are growing. How do we, because it's, even from the way we're training them, these are some of the things we're probably not even helping them to appreciate. That as you're looking at the contract, please look at 1, 2, 3 things. Because once he signs off, then there's an expectation of delivery. And it's both ways. They are being fleeced on one side, but we also know some of them that have fleeced some companies. They get money for advance work and then just disappear in thin air. So as we reflect on these, and the gig economy is becoming a big thing, and there are quite a number of our brothers and sisters that are in these spaces, that are working day in, day out. How do we safeguard these people? Because for me right now, that's one thing that I am struggling with. How do I help this young man that is going online, that is joining Upwork, that is joining all these platforms? They are not clustered. They'll probably not even join any union because they are all over. Where is work is where they are. But we just need to make sure that we safeguard them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to take one last question right here, give our panelists a chance to answer.
Thank you. My name is Shane Trushani. I'm from South Africa. I think first the comment. I think the expansion and development of internet in Africa, I think it creates this issue of underemployment because this gig economy are not running out of employees. And if, for example, you want to organize only as app workers, it will really never work. You have to develop a hybrid organization where you work with trade unions, because trade unions have networks and they can actually take these issues up. They can even fight for you even if they are in a different country. I think it's something that you really need to explore because the sector is actually developing underemployment in the region. But my question goes to Nerima, and because the issue of content moderators, I need to understand the percentage of people who come from different countries who work in Kenya, because the issue is almost similar to food couriers in South Africa, where the majority of them are undocumented migrants, and majority of them coming from Uganda, I think because of the skill of driving borders. And how are they being paid here? Because in South Africa, again, you only find out, because we have done a study, almost 76% of those riders come from the region, is Uganda, Malawi, Zimbabwe. And you only find out when a person actually got an accident that they don't have documents. How these platforms hires them, how they pay them, but I think there is a bank that actually, I think they negotiate with them and pay them. So I want to understand again with the content moderators, are they paid in Kenya or are they paid in their own countries? Those are the things that I would like to check.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the panelists. I'm aware of time. Maybe Nerima, we'll start with you with Shane's question, and I think the gentleman's question about how to help young workers, and then there was some questions around challenging for organizing that maybe we can have you all speak on.
All right, thanks. I'll be quick. Michael, it's through entities like yours. I believe that engagement such as this is creating some form of awareness, and it sort of ties into what Shane is talking about, because I believe the idea of collective movement is shifting. What we're talking about is a generational shift. We've seen a rise of movements online and people doing collective action a little bit different. And so how can we mix the two powers? And that's why I fall under Shane's response, which I agree with you in terms of it having to be hybrid and having more engagements and platforms where we sit down with unions to be able to understand how unions work and how young people now organize, and how can we meet halfway using multi-layered approaches to make sure that we're getting the same goal and result that we all want, which is decent work, decent living. But to answer you, this is also something that we are planning to do in terms of researching, in terms of the numbers. Unfortunately, a lot of these companies have come into the country as sweatshops. We are not sure who's even in the country. We were learning later on that platforms like ChatGPT were first, tested in countries like Kenya before it was launched to the rest of the world. But this is now something you find out years later. But even the content moderators in this specific case with Meta, minority are Kenyan, minority. So the majority are actually from the different parts of Africa, very high level west and south, very few within the north. So this is also something that I'm hoping in the next few months we have better information too, so that we have better answers. In terms of who pays them, they are paid from Kenya. There's some things I can't really share because of the case, but it seemed like they were paying tax, but we're also not so sure. So that's still under investigation. So there's a lot of gray area, as I mentioned, but hopefully with information it will be easier to work around. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone want to give a quick answer on the organizing question? Yeah.
Just to respond to my comrade from Uganda, yes, exactly. Based on the experience we have seen during the COVID-19, especially when the continent was in lockdown, our affiliates developed a couple of tools to organize online, and it was possible. Thank you very much.
Alex, did you want to add something? No. Okay. Any of our other panelists want to add any last comments?
Okay, maybe just I add my voice, but I think the answers that have been given are adequate. The question of how do we prepare our youth, I think we had talked about reorganizing this supply chain. There is no country in Africa that has laws or rules on internet or digital platforms. So this is the first thing. You realize many youth in Africa are unemployed. So even if they got a contract on online, which has 1,000 pages, is he going to read those documents? He'll definitely sign and take up the job and read those rules and regulations later on in the contract later on, and realizes that, so this is what I went through. So I think regulations will work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Chantal, did you want to say anything? No? Okay. I think we're going to end our session. We are all around for the rest of the day today, and happy to answer other questions, but please join me in giving our panelists a round of applause. Thank you, everyone.